Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. We're on the boat. Apparently, I'm having bad hair day, so deal with it. Um, you can probably hear the fan in the background because we're doing some curing of some goop. I have not cut the through hull hole yet, and that's kind of a weird one. So, this boat has no through hulls at all. We have an externally mounted outboard for a motor, and it's by design. It's not a replacement of there's no broken engine sitting here behind me in the middle. It's actually designed with an outboard well. Catalina designed that. It's not perfect because it was designed for a shorter shaft motor, two cycle motor with a very small top head piece. That's the top part of the they call it a power head, but the top part of the outboard. So, like, if you want to use the actual enclosure that's there, you're kind of stuck in some with some very weird size limitations. Ours is mounted on a cantilever mount outside of that, which is great in a sense, but also moves the weight further back, which is bad in another sense. Also, modern, larger four-stroke motor, it's just heavier. So, we're dealing with a 110-pound motor mounted a foot behind the transom, 6 inches to a foot, depending on where the cantilever is at, because it goes like this, like that. It comes out as it goes down. So that's kind of a little bit of an issue. It's also honestly overpowered. We don't need a 9.8 for this size boat. Most people kind of assume that you do, and that lower power is bad and stuff. But there's a weight component that goes with that. And honestly, if I had the 8 horsepower, 25-inch extra long shaft that weighs 90 pounds, I would be happier. Be easier to move around and stuff. And with the extra 5 inches, the 25, so outboards come with a 15-inch shaft. That's how far deep they go in the water. 20-inch and 25-inch. 25-inch, we have a 20-inch. 25-inch, extra long, would be really nice because I would move the engine less. I could actually rig a static mount that doesn't move at all and still have it back a little bit. But I could actually tilt the engine up all the way and have it work out pretty well. It would reduce the number of moving parts, make things a little bit easier. But also, it would be lighter, and there's a lot that goes into this outboard engine thing. With the prop itself, outboards are often designed for high-speed planing hulls. You put an outboard on a little boat. You put your 9.8 horsepower outboard, the little one that we have on this boat, you put it on a dinghy, little rubber dinghy that's 9 feet long, and you go. And you're going 15 miles an hour, you're going 20 miles an hour, you're going you're planing, you're going up, you're not going 4.5 knots, 5 knots. That's what we're doing on the boat. So the propeller is designed for that higher speed and a different way of moving through the water. So a lower speed, what they call a high thrust prop, that's designed to push more torque at lower speed. That's actually something that would work for us very well. I just need to swap it out. I haven't done that yet. And maybe, maybe I'll do that on this engine. Maybe I'll do something else. We're still talking about that. But because of this outboard, I have no through hulls. Okay, we'll get back to the outboard in a minute. There's no holes in the boat. Okay, most boats have several holes below the waterline. These are not particularly dangerous. It's not something you have to worry about. It's not like, oh my God, my boat's going to sink because it has holes under the water. It can happen, and it does happen. And there's, but it's usually a lack of attention, a lack of maintenance, or a lack of preparation. Okay, so attention. Is it open or closed? Are you leaving the boat? What are you doing with the boat? Attention. Maintenance, does it open or close? Okay, so you'll have a hole in the boat, and then you'll have a valve, something that you turn on and off to let the water do what it's supposed to do. Now, usually what's going on is you're sucking water in to go to, say, a saltwater faucet. A lot of cruising boats will have two faucets, one for freshwater, one for saltwater. The saltwater one is free, infinite water. You don't have to worry about it. It's just salt water, right? You don't drink it. You can bathe in it and then do a freshwater rinse. So a lot of places will have a through hole that pulls in seawater to use as water. And then if you have engines that are cooled, you'll have that seawater, raw water, coming into your cooling system somewhere in your cooling system, right? It may run through the engine. That's a raw water cooled engine, or it may run through an internal heat exchanger because you're using an antifreeze, freshwater, what they call freshwater, but it's an antifreeze cooling system. Some boats actually have an external radiator that just pushes the antifreeze freshwater out along the keel and cools in this pipe and then comes back in. And that's kind of a cool way to do it if you can do it that way. So that's just, but because that prevents the through holes. But of course, you still have something down there that could leak somehow, right? So there's still stuff. And then you'll have outflows of your through holes. Okay, you'll have through holes that go out, like your sink drain. Okay, drains out into the ocean. It's a gray water drain. It drains out into the ocean. Most people, most boats, most of the time, that's just how that works. It's a sink. It doesn't do chemicals. It doesn't do anything crazy. It just drains out. There's nothing wrong with your gray water going into the water. There's nothing wrong with you using some decent dish soap and flushing it out into the water. There's nothing wrong with this, okay? There's also through holes for things like transducers, your depth sounder, your sonar, or meters that determine how fast you're going through the water. Little fin thing that spins as you go, and they'll drill a hole in the hull of the boat so that you can plug that in there and have the wires on the inside and the spinny thing on the outside. Stuff like that. So a lot of boats will have, 15 through holes, 7 through holes. Some primitive style boats, sailboats, will only have 3 or 4. We have 0. None. Okay? So anyway, maintenance is making sure that the parts for all of the through holes work. So if your through hole doesn't have it's just a plugged space for a transducer, your maintenance is to make sure it's not leaking and to make sure that the goop that makes it not leak is still there and still usable. Same thing with all of your through holes, but if it's a pipe and it passes water in or out one way or the other, or your exhaust gas, whatever, you need to make sure that you have a handle that closes and opens reliably. You have to maintain that. It's a moving part, okay? It's also a wear part. It's an electrolysis part. It can go bad because of electrical currents in the water. So you have to maintain that, okay? Attention, maintenance, and then functionality. Does it actually work? Did it break? What happens if it breaks? If it breaks, you have a place where you can cut the pipe, the tubing, the through hole. You have a place where you can take that apart and hammer in a conical wedge. Okay, it's just a tapered piece of broomstick, basically. And you just pound it in there. You can do it from the inside, you can do it from the outside. Okay, whatever works, right? And that'll plug the hole. So we have no through holes. We don't have to worry about that at all. It's not something that I worry about in the sense of, my boat's going to sink, but it is something to be aware of when you're thinking about your boat in general, okay? We have a plan to put in a through hole, which is weird because I don't want any through holes in this boat that are below the waterline. And that's actually the key element there. I do not have a sink drain, okay? I have a sink, and it can drain into a bucket. and then I can throw the bucket overboard. That actually works pretty well. There's no real problem with that. It's a little inconvenient at times, especially like in the middle of the night, if you need to like brush your teeth, or if you're drinking some tea in the middle of the night and you need to rinse out your teacup or something. Or if the weather's bad. When I say middle of the night, mostly what I mean is the weather's bad. Right now, the middle of the night is 5 p.m. because the sun goes down early, right? And because of some weird daylight savings time thing that people on the East Coast do, and it doesn't make any sense. So, I'm putting in a drain for the sink, but it's going to be above the water line. So the through hole is going to still be a regular through hole. Even if it's above the water line, you still need to have all the parts to close it off, to plug it up. Okay, in case your boat is heeled, you're sitting way over like this, or way over like this, or there's a storm, or something else. You certainly don't want it to make, if your boat is getting full of water for some reason, and you're pumping like mad, and you're trying to keep it from sinking, you don't want that through hole that was above the water, it's now below the water, to start making the problem worse. You want to be able to close it off. So we're going to do an above the water line through hole. Still needs to close, still needs to do everything. It's just there to drain water out of the sink. That's it. That's all it's there for. Seems like a lot of effort for very little stuff. And in a sense, you're right. And the gray water is clean enough that I could actually pump it out. I could have a sump, and I could use a hand pump and just go shoo, and pump it back to the aft part of the boat where we have a drain that comes out in the outboard well. And that drain, the one that actually goes out there, there's two that actually go out there. The cockpit drains actually just drain into that space. They're there. There's nothing there. There's no valves, no nothing, just holes into the outboard well. But the bilge has a bilge pump that pumps out and pumps the water out into the outboard well. That's where the drain is. So there's a drain that comes from inside the boat to out, and it has a pump in the middle, so you can't get flow backwards because the pump only works one way. There's another one that I put in that I haven't finished off. It's plugged, and it's actually for a different sink drain. It's for an idea that I had to have a sink up here, up a little higher, that I could just pour and drain that way. And I'm still possibly going to do that. It just seems like a really easy way to deal with some stuff, but it's not a sink that you can actually, like, that you're going to hand pump water into a cup if you need to, like, rinse out your teacup or something. We don't have a lot of dishes, but that's, like, it's up pretty high. It's not usable for that. So it's kind of an interesting thing, and I'm not sure how I'm going to finish that off. I may actually end up tying it into a sump pump, another hand pump, and have another basin, like gray water basin or something. But it's currently my plan to make this like the easiest possible thing is to drill a hole in my boat above the water line and put in a through hole. And then that through hole is going to be connected to the sink drain. There's going to be a valve to shut it off, and that's pretty much it. That's all there is. The sink itself is high enough above the water line. I'm not worried about when the boat is heeled it being up, down, too low or anything. But the truth is that what you do with that sort of thing is you just turn it off when you're moving. You're not at anchor, turn it off. You're not in flat water, turn it off. You can open it up when you're in flat water in a canal or something. Just, it's one of those things that goes on your little checklist. You have a checklist. You have a heavy weather checklist. Reef the sails, get out your wet weather gear, put up the jack lines that stay on the boat, safety lines, close the through hole. Make sure the lights are on in advance. There you go. You're done. That's your checklist. So anyway, that's the thing. That's one of the boat projects that we're doing. Still waiting on diesel heater stuff. I don't know what's going on with that. There's, it's a good thing that this time that we weren't planning to move super, super fast, because the shipping got very delayed, and that's kind of a sucky thing. And I'm getting really, really annoyed with some of the companies that promise 2-day shipping and then use third parties and don't give you the shipping. Release it, let it go, but it's one of those things that's kind of a constant recurring theme. And there are certain companies like Amazon that I'm just trying to not use anymore. I'm much happier with, direct ordering from Catalina Direct, even if they charge me $5 more for a particular block that I need for rigging, rather than trying to find the best deal on Amazon, because at least I know that Catalina Direct will ship when they say they ship. And I don't know from Amazon if I'm even going to get a real part, or if I'm going to get something fake from somebody else, because they don't do their own shipping in a large part of the cases. They're using third-party drop shippers, and I have no idea what I'm actually going to get. So, whatever. That's it on the project front right now. There's a lot of stuff to do. I need to make a decision on the port lights. I'm going to turn the camera for a moment. So this is what the ports look like on a old Catalina. It's glass, tempered glass, and it's got this frame around it, and there's rubber on this part of the frame which shrinks over time, and then there's rubber on the outside. This is an aluminum frame that holds the glass. This is the rubber that holds the glass, and then there's a frame. This part of the outer shell, okay, goes through the outer shell, through the aluminum frame, into the boat, holds it all in, holds it together. Then there's an outer part that also goes over the top, but this frame, the aluminum frame here, has an outer rubber part also, and all of this stuff just eventually goes bad. It's not a great design. It's a very automotive design, and it works really well for 10, 15 years, and it doesn't open, and there's just a lot going on here. I could do the Sparkmans and Stevens, the S2 style, where I just take this whole thing out, cut plexiglass that's roughly this shape and size, the shape and size of the trim piece on the outside, and bolt it through. You put the goop on it, you make sure you're all clean, and you just bolt it through. That's actually not a problem. It works really well. The driest boats, the absolute driest boats I have been in terms of port lights, have been S2s, S&S boats, because it's really easy to fix. If there's a leak, you just pull the bolts, you pull the whole thing off, you scrape it, you put new goop on it, you put it in. There's no frame, there's no weird attachments on the outside, there's no desire to try to squeegee silicone into the outer trim piece. Like, you don't mess with it. It's easy to fix when you need to fix it, and you don't need to fix it very often. And that's an answer. It's something that I have to clean up the ledges, the rims on the inside, and make it look a little pretty, but it's a really tempting answer, and it may cost less than getting rebuild kits for the ports. Also, if I do that, I can cut a hole in the plexiglass, so you can cut a hole here to put an opening port in. That's an opening bit, okay, so that you can actually get some airflow through, because solid glass does not do good with airflow. So I do have some leaks, and we're mitigating them, and that's actually something I have to think about in the near-term future. There's motor stuff. We'll talk about that in another video. I have to make a couple decisions really soon about what I'm going to do with that, and whether I want to spend the next 5-6 months slowly gathering money and batteries together to go electric or not. It's tempting, but it's another video, and I'm going to make the video, and we're going to talk about like the idea of cruising, how I like to cruise, and how that's going to work with the power. So we'll talk about that soon. That's it. We're pretty close to 20 minutes. This is more or less an update video, and Still waiting on the heater bit so I can figure out where I'm going to put it. It's a diesel heater. It's one of the copies of the Webasto German heater. I really think that it's because I can tuck it away in a different spot. I think it's a better answer for this boat than the solid fuel Dickinson, the little wood stove heater type thing. But that's really what I want someday. I think as we look at other boat options in the future, that's probably where I'm going to end up. But I'm going to try this diesel and see how it goes. That's all for right now. Just a just a work day. It's above 48 degrees, so I get to actually do goop. I'm not drilling a hole in a boat today because it's only 49 degrees right now, and I actually want warmth for that part of the project. But that's it. Stay sideways.